What I've discovered is that so many people who are in leadership roles of all types, they may portray something on the surface and underneath there's something else brewing altogether different. We have this underlying fear that we're not really qualified for what we're doing or what we have, the role that we're in. And you're kind of worried about they're going to find me out. They're going to discover that I'm a fake, right?
Yeah.
So I'm putting on this front, and hoping that nobody is going to really discover that I don't know what I'm doing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to have Linda Brown as my guest today. Linda is a woman's empowerment and transformational tapping coach. She helps heart-centered women leaders, healers, and entrepreneurs gain the confidence to rise, have a bigger impact, more income, and create a purposeful and abundant life. She has guided women to connect with her soul calling, stop self-sabotaging behavior, and reclaim their inner power and authentic voice. With over 20 years in the wellness and self-empowerment field, she has inspired thousands of women to transform mindsets, blockages, and limiting beliefs so that they can start living their true calling with confidence, clarity, and impact. Welcome to Next Level Leadership. I am Dana Weaver, your host, and I'm so glad to have you here, Linda.
Thank you. Hi, Dana. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you'd like to add about your intro that I didn't cover, or?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, there was a lot of really good information, and I felt as I was reading it that I thought, yes, I need that. Yes, I need that. Yes, I need that. So there's a lot of really good things in there, and I think that that's going to give us a rich conversation today. So again, I'm very, very glad to have you.
Thank you.
Through your leadership or through your experience, clearly worked with a lot of leaders and a lot of people with your healing journey. And what have you learned about leadership through that experience?
Mm-hmm. I've learned that, although for some people it may seem as if being a leader is just natural for everybody who is a leader, it's actually not. Because what I've discovered is that so many people who are in leadership roles of all types, they may portray something on the surface and underneath there's something else brewing altogether different. And, many leaders, and I work with women mostly, what I find is that many of the women that I work with, they struggle with it. They really do. Because there's a part of it that is sort of putting forward an image, putting forward a face, and underneath they're just very uncomfortable, struggling in many ways.
That is so true. And it's something we don't talk about at all.
Because to talk about it is almost like admitting weakness, and that's not something that's highly regarded in our society.
That is true. So when you're working with them, do you talk about helping them bring that forward so that they can deal with it and then show up as a higher version of themselves?
Yes. If they're willing to go there. I mean, not everybody is. Not everybody is in a space where they, number one, want to admit it, or number two, are in a sort of a space where they're ready to address these challenges. Because sometimes they go way back into childhood, into wherever, things that need to be dealt with, and not everybody is always willing or ready to go there. And for those that are, they can make some really big strides.
Oh yeah. What are some of obviously you can't share names or anything like that, but what are some of the biggest strides you've seen happen when you work with us?
Oh, I've seen some really big shifts. The funny thing is that a lot of the times that I'm working with women, with some of the tools that I use, they may come to me with a whole laundry list of challenges that they're experiencing in their lives, whether it's conflict, relationship, whether it's stuck patterns that they can't seem to break free of. And we may start with listing some of these things, and we'll start working together with them. And, very often when I ask them about those same issues a little way down the road, they don't even remember what I'm talking about.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And I actually have to remind them, do you remember that? Do you remember what a challenge this was for you when we first started working? And sometimes they seriously have to rack their brains, their memories in order to recall. It's very interesting and not unusual. This is not an unusual phenomenon.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the modalities that you use to help women accomplish that.
Yeah. You know what, I have learned many modalities in my life because I've been through, different different stages of wanting to absorb and learn various things, be certified in various things, and then use them to help women. And what I've found is that as a natural part of the process, I start to really be attracted to certain modalities and less so with others. And some of the ones that I found to be the most effective are actually some of the most simple. But they really go down to deep, like, connection and energetics and connection. And one of the ones that I use the most actually is, it's becoming a lot more popular now. People are more aware of it. It's tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. So I've actually been using it for over 20 years, I would say. I won't give away my age, so we'll just leave it at that.
That sounds perfect.
Over 20 years. Long before many people had ever dreamed of it, heard of it, anything. They just like the land of the woo-woo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I've been using it over time. Somebody brought it to me when I was, over 20 years ago, and said, "Hey, you know what? I think you would be really, really great at this. Why don't you try, learn about it, see what you find out." And I started using it almost immediately, and been just incredible. I've been using it ever since, for all kinds of things, and with phenomenal results most of the time. Of course, it can't help everybody or everything, but enough to be so, like, super impressive. So what happens is that I will generally use this with most people. This will be one of my go-to tools, and I also teach it to the women that I'm working with. In addition to that, so I sort of nicknamed my use of this modality as transformational tapping. And the reason I call it that is because, first of all, I learned the older school method of the tapping, which includes different points that are no longer used these days. Doesn't make it better necessarily, but it's just I'm using a different technique. And so in addition to that, I combine it with energy, as in connecting deeper inward into the soul, into aligning with yourself. What I find is that a lot of people, a lot of women, are not fully aligned with what they're doing, with who they are. They're kind of stuffing it in there, and so they're not really meeting whatever they may consider to be their purpose here. So I will use different tools and techniques that help with that alignment, in addition to the tapping. And we can also, get into healing on different levels when we're able to go deep. It can go very, very deeply. And so we can get into various layers of actual physical, mental, emotional healing, along with whatever outward thing we're actually working with, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Can you help me? And I'm sure that there are some people in the audience watching that are wondering, okay, if they know anything about EFT or tapping, they know what it looks like, because people have done it online, right? They know what it looks like, but how does that make the deep change that you're talking about? What happens in that process that would help somebody to go deeper and change?
It's a really good question. And, first of all, it's been used for such a long time without people necessarily fully understanding the actual mechanism of it. And it's just over the last, I would say the last several years, there's been a lot more research that has gone into it to discover, well, what is actually going on and why and how. One of the things that happens, sort of as a starting point is that, first of all, when we're doing the tapping, we're actually tapping on acupuncture points or acupressure points. Okay, so they're not random points. You don't just randomly tap wherever you feel like it. They're very specific to acupuncture meridians that flow through the body. And so if you are in any way using acupuncture or familiar with it or ever had it done, it's using some of those same principles. Those principles are, in acupuncture, you're actually moving the energy that's flowing through those meridians because, problems, challenges of health, etc., will be associated with too much energy, too little energy, and just not enough balance of flow. So it's taking some of these similar concepts. And what's been found in doing the tapping is, one of the things is that, number one, is that it severely decreases cortisol. So if, for people who are not familiar with what cortisol is, maybe they've heard the word, but don't really know what it is, this has to do with stress, okay? One of the stress hormones is cortisol. And so when we are under a lot of stress, cortisol is released. And that, being in a constant state of cortisol overload, so to speak, can have severe impacts on the body. So as we're doing this tapping through these energy meridians, it's actually decreasing the cortisol, decreasing our stress. And one thing that I've found over the years is that, if nothing else, if I'm doing a tapping exercise with someone, usually I'll be able to, within a mere few minutes, be able to see them going into a much deeper state of relaxation that maybe they haven't experienced in years or for as long as they can remember. So there are actually a lot of physical things going on. Cortisol, there also, it's helping with trauma. So for people who have suffered through trauma and it's gotten their body into a state of sort of frozen in this trauma, it can help to release that by some of these same mechanisms. So, the exact science of what is actually taking place step-by-step shifts, but there have been tests done. This has been analyzed and recognized quantitatively and, through testing of the brain to see when the brain is firing under different stressors. And after doing EFT tapping, those firings are not happening anymore. So it's pretty incredible. And there are people who have been involved in the actual research. If somebody in your audience is maybe, curious to know the details, like what the heck's going on? It's a logical question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And talking about the cortisol, the fight or flight, that comes, when we're leaders, or I will speak from my personal experience, as a leader, it's like you're juggling all these balls in the air. We talked about that earlier before we even got on, that, it's a constant juggle. And when we live with such high levels of cortisol for extended periods of time, it, like you said, it can really affect our body in different ways. And stress it's not good for the body. It does all kinds of things to it. And the fact that this can bring it down, it really perked my interest. And I'll just give a little plug to Linda, because I got to attend one of her master classes where she did this experience for us. And I felt a lot less stress after we did that. So there's something about this that I just can't quite understand and explain, which is why I'm so glad she's here today. But it really does help. And it helps you refocus and helps you to show up as a leader differently if you choose to do something like this. So using this modality, and I know that's not the only modality that you use, but using this, how does it help with imposter syndrome? We talked a little bit about how imposter syndrome can show up. How can tapping help with that?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome, for people who aren't really familiar with what that is, it's sort of when um, we have this underlying fear that we're not really qualified for what we're doing or what we have, um, the role that we're in. And you're kind of worried about they're going to find me out. They're going to discover that that I'm a fake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm putting on this front, and hoping that nobody is going to really discover that I don't know what I'm doing, or that sort of thing. That's the feeling of imposter syndrome. And so it's like with many things. So first of all, we've got imposter syndrome, and we've got a few other things, self-sabotage. We've got a lot of things that are sort of related to success, because very often when women are in leadership roles, they may present really well. Meanwhile, underneath, they're struggling with this idea of, am I really qualified to be doing this? And maybe feeling that they're not. And so that can become a repetitive pattern of thought, and that can show up in behaviors as well. One of the things, we talked about how tapping can really help with stress, with the cortisol. It can also be amazing with behaviors that are the result of thought patterns, negative beliefs and thought patterns. And so one thing that can happen is that, especially if you've ever felt like an imposter, you can automatically go into this loop of thought, without even being consciously aware of it, telling you that, you know what, I'm not really good. I'm not good enough for this. Like, I'm just not good enough. Get into these stuck patterns. And so this type of tapping can very easily help to shift people out of that, in much the same way as it helps to bring you down. You bring your cortisol down and bring you into a level of relaxation within a very short period of time. And so what would happen is that I would be tapping with somebody specifically around the imposter syndrome, around the fears of being found out, around the self-judgment that I'm not good enough, around the fears that other people feel that I'm not good enough, around the fears of failure, fears of success, all of these things that are intertwined. And so if we're talking about those specific issues, it could actually shift patterns, like just as quickly as it can shift other things. It can shift, I use it a lot with, this is not imposter syndrome, but just to give an example, I use it a lot with women who have headaches, for example. You can see a shift within minutes for a headache. Usually if we're dealing with something like imposter syndrome, these are very deeply ingrained patterns that we've been living throughout our lives. And it's not necessarily going to be an instantaneous shift. In fact, it probably will not, because there are multiple layers, but it's the same idea. And so what ends up happening is that after we've been working together with on these particular issues, imposter syndrome, then, the woman might not feel in the moment, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, I'm good. Like, they might not feel that instantaneously, but it'll start to show up in their lives and start to show up in their work, to show up in the way that they start interacting with people at work, interacting with people who might be higher, their peers, people who are in different roles, and where that hesitation that may have been there, that they may have been struggling, is not there anymore. Sometimes they might not realize it until I ask the question. So, what about, remember when you used to feel like this? Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. Oh yeah, right. You're right. Thanks for reminding me, because it disappears.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. It's like, pardon the pun, but it's an untapped resource.
It is. Oh, I love that. Can I borrow that?
You sure can.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to write it down.
I'm just thinking of all the people that I've worked with over the years, and Something so simple yet complex, because it's also under if you think of it as an iceberg, we see the tip with all the stuff going on underneath. Um, can make such a shift for people and instantaneously. I am a huge fan of when you're in the middle of such stress, and like with the people that I work with, a lot of times they work for like home health agencies, home care, nursing homes, and they're constantly putting out fires. The minute that they arrive in their job, they are having to put out different fires, and having the opportunity to step back and just give themselves a chance to recalibrate in a few quiet moments is something that I recommend all the time. But then adding this idea of tapping into it, I could see how that would be very beneficial to them.
I agree. I agree with you. Putting out fires is one thing that, if you're constantly putting out fires all day long, your stress level is probably up to here, not here. And this can really help with that. And one of the things that, I forgot to mention, one of the aspects of the work that I do that I really like, specifically involving the tapping, is that it's not a psychotherapy session. There's nothing wrong with psychotherapy. Psychotherapists are great and much needed.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people don't want to go into all of the details of everything that's distressing for them. Mm-hmm. And so with this technique, we don't necessarily need to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just so painful. People just don't want to go there yet. They're not ready to. And so something like this can help to shift a lot of that without having to go into the nitty-gritty of the story.
That's fantastic. That's got to be very interesting to our viewers and wanting to know more about that. As we've been talking, is it possible for you to either demonstrate for us how this could work, or can you share some tips that may help people on this journey?
So tips on which journey specifically?
I'm sorry, leadership. Like, if they find themselves in the fire, they're putting out the fires. They're super stressed. They don't feel like they're going to be able to show up at the next thing the way they would like to. What can they do in the moment?
If we've got a few minutes, why don't I just lead a few minutes of the tapping?
That would be awesome.
It'll just be off the cuff, but hey.
Well, let's put the person in mind then, if that's all right with you. So it's a super busy executive who's, like we said, constantly putting out fires and trying to meet all of the expectations of just everything coming at them. They have to make sure that everybody's following the regulations, and they've got to make sure that, they can make payroll and, all of the things, and nothing really connects with each other, so that if you do one thing, it'll fix everything. It's just all different kinds of things. So having that person in mind is the people who will likely watch this.
Sure thing. So first of all, before we begin, I just want to say first and foremost that I'm inviting your audience to follow along with me. This is not meant to be a healing session of any kind, and everyone has free will. Please look after yourselves. If something is coming up that is a little challenging for you in the moment, then it's perfectly fine to stop. Having said that, I don't expect that to happen, but I just want to put that up there. Secondly, why don't we just begin with, I'm going to show you the points that I use, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
So first of all, the first point that I start with, if you just take your dominant hand and then go to the side of the non-dominant hand, okay? Baby finger side. And we're going to start with this point right here, okay? Then after that, we're going to take 2 fingers from your dominant hand, tapping on the top of the head. Right around there. And then the next point that I use is at the beginning of an eyebrow. Oh. Doesn't matter. It could be either side, okay? Then the side of the eye. Again, it could be either eye. Underneath the eye. And it could be either as well. Under the nose, under the mouth, And then we come down to the collarbone point. So the two little bones sticking up here, okay, we tap on one, or we can tap on the other. And then sometimes I'll just take my fingers like this and I'll tap on both. And this is a very, very, very relaxing point. Okay. The next one you might not be able to see, but it's just right underneath my arm. So about this span, okay, underneath the underarm, and it's right down the side. So for women, I say it's about the middle of the bra line. So it's right at the where your baby finger would be. Okay. You're going to tap right where your baby finger would land. Okay. Middle of the bra line for women. And come down to the fingers. So the first, we're going to do the thumb first. Oops. So right where the nail and the skin meet, there's that line right there. So I'm going to tap right on the line. And then the next point that I use is right at the same point on the index finger, the same point on the middle finger, the same point on the ring finger, the same point on the baby finger. And then we're going to go back to where we started, which is at the side of the hand. Okay, so I don't expect anybody to memorize all of that. You can just follow along with me and I'm going to lead us through. So we're going to start. I'm just going to say things as if I were you. You can tap along with me. Okay. You can say the words or not say the words. It's totally up to you. So let's start at the side of the hand. So even though I'm feeling so much stress right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling so much stress right in this moment, I'm choosing to love and accept myself anyway. Even though I've got all this stress, I'm choosing to deeply and profoundly love and accept myself. Okay, we're going to stop tapping at the side of the hand. Take two fingers. Let's start at the top of the head. Okay, so much stress. Eyebrow point. And putting out so many fires all the time. Side of the eye. I don't know which fire to put out first. Under the eye. Because they just keep coming at me. Under the nose. And there's no one fire that I could put out that would put it out for all of them. Under the mouth. Feeling so much stress. Collarbone point. So many expectations that I'm dealing with. Under the arm. Everything that needs to get done every single day. Pinpoint. Trying to make sure that all the regulations are followed. Index finger. That all of the rules are being followed. Middle finger. That everything is going just exactly as it should. Ring finger. And I have to make sure that payroll gets met. Baby finger. That everybody's being looked after. Side of the hand. So many responsibilities. Top of the head. I know that I don't have to feel this stress every day. Eyebrow point. I know that I don't have to live this stress all the time. Side of the eye. I wonder how it would feel if I didn't have all of these fires to put out. Under the eye. If I could just put out one and be done. Under the nose. I'm imagining that feeling and I'm letting go of the stress that accumulates inside of me. Under the mouth. Releasing all of that stress, transforming it. Collarbone point. Letting it go. Under the arm. Filling up my day and my life with peace. Thumb point. Feeling calm and relaxed. Index finger. Feeling ready to face the rest of the day without all of that stress. Middle finger. Loving and accepting myself deeply and completely. Ring finger. Without judgment. Without all of the stress. Baby finger. Feeling calm and relaxed. Side of the hand. Letting all the rest go. And just keep tapping and take a deep breath. Stop tapping and just release the breath. And make one more deep breath. Feel all the stress, release, let it go.
Beautiful. I feel less stressed. I know that if our audience followed along, that they do too. It really was beautiful. And you're very skilled at it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I love it. Actually, I love it. Use it on myself all the time.
That's definitely something to learn. So we're kind of coming to the end of this. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so. I think I've really enjoyed our conversation, and yeah, I think that you asked some great questions, and I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for me? It's okay if not. No. So if people followed along with you and they're feeling less stressed right now, they're going to want more of this. So how do they get a hold of you to see what it takes to work with you?
Well, there are a few different ways, actually, and I'm hoping that these are going to go into the show notes so that, so that people don't have to try and memorize it now. So I can be reached on my Facebook page, which is Align with Linda, Align, ALIGN, with Linda. I also have a Facebook group for women called Aligned and Awakened Woman. I can also be found on Instagram at Align with Linda. And if anybody would be interested, I have a free gift to offer. And yes, it's called Dare to Shine, 13 Signs That You're Holding Back Your Brilliance and Impact. Wow. And they can get this free gift from me by going to alignwithlinda.com/dare to shine.
Awesome.
Yes.
I know they're going to do that. And we will put that in the show notes so that people can just link to them so that they don't have to remember them. But I really appreciate that. And I hope that they will go and learn a little bit more about this because it is incredibly powerful. And you have been a wonderful guest. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us and share your talents. Thank you for that impromptu sharing. That was very, very cool. I've not done that before yet. So that's very, very, very cool. Any final words that you want to say?
I'm wishing all the best to all of your audience. Anyone who's struggling with anything that we've spoken about today in their leadership. It's totally doable to get past whatever you're struggling with. And I'm wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who has spent time with us today. And I'm sure that if you did that tapping session with us, you gained a lot of, or you lost a lot of stress. You lost something today, which is not usually what we talk about, but it's the best thing to lose is the stress. And we would love to know how it impacted you. So you could put those in the comments below and feel free to post any questions because I'm sure that Linda and myself would be happy to go in there and respond to any of your questions and wanting any additional information. And if you found this interview or any of the interviews that we've done on Next Level Leadership, I'd really appreciate it if you'd take time to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends, because the more people that know about it, the more opportunity that we have to be able to share these life-giving techniques and discussions about leadership that will definitely take our leadership to the next level. So until next time, thank you again, Linda, for joining us, and thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon.